If you've just got an allotment and aren't quite sure where to start, then this video is for you. This is a video that I kind of wish that I would have had access to when I first got my allotment, and so I'm hoping that a few of these little hints or tips might help you on your gardening and allotment journey. I'm a gardening midwife, aka Holly, and I've had my allotment here for about 4 years now. Now it has massively transformed over the last 4 and a bit years. Although this plot was really well used and beautifully loved by a lovely lady that unfortunately passed away and therefore left the plot, which allowed me to take it on. It was mainly kind of grass, just with a few little beds kind of dug in. There was a few established plants and things like strawberries on the plot, but I have done quite a bit of work to it over the last 4 or so years. I now have a polytunnel that you can see behind me. I've now got a shed, I've now got raised beds, and tend to garden using a no-dig method, which literally is what it says on the tin. I don't dig into the soil. I try and leave the soil so that the worms and things all do what they need to do, and I will kind of mulch and put a lot of compost on top, and yeah, try to not disturb the earth and garden in that way. Now, a few of the things that I wish that I had known when I took on my allotment were to use what you've got already. Now, it kind of sounds a little bit self-explanatory, but it can be really easy to take on an allotment, feel a little bit overwhelmed, and then just want to start digging and building and doing, but actually you don't really get time to see what's already there. Now, if it is a complete bare plot of land, then okay, fair enough, you might want to get going a little bit sooner. But just starting to learn what this bit of land is like and what's already in that ground can be really essential. So for example, I've learned that where I put my shed is actually the wettest part of the allotment. So in hindsight, it's probably the worst place for it to have gone, because it's much more likely to get rot on the bottom of the wood and it might not last me as long. However, I've also learned along the way that some of the plants and the flowers that I wasn't really sure what they were, and I was like, oh, I don't want those there, and kind of dug up and moved. Now I found that I'm slowly putting them back into the allotment, because actually I really want flowers here as well as vegetables, and some of them were really well established, quite beautiful, really good for pollinators, and I dug them up. But if I'd have sat with it for a little bit longer, I probably would have learned that actually they were absolutely perfect where they were. My second little tip, it's a bit boring, is to prepare. Now, some allotments might come available in the middle of winter like it is now, and you might think, oh great, well we'll just leave that until the season gets going a bit more. The gardening and growing season doesn't really get started until spring, and so we'll get down the allotment in spring. And you'll probably find then that you get down here, the grass might be up to your hips, and it can feel really overwhelming because you just want to get growing, you want to get sowing, you might have got some plants from the garden centre that you want to get in the ground, and it's not ready for it to go in. So actually using a few of the winter months to really prepare your allotment will really pay off. Now, when I say prepare the allotment, what I personally mean is to do some of the boring jobs that you're not going to want to do in the spring when you want to get sowing and growing. So preparing your beds. Now, if you're doing no dig and you want to make some raised beds, this is the perfect time to start those raised beds off. Get them nice and established. Get some fresh compost in. If you're using things like manure, get the manure in over the winter, so then the frost will help it to break down and really get into the soil. Other things that I done was that I decided I didn't want grass in between my beds. I found that it kept creeping over into the beds. It was a bit of a pain for mowing and keeping on top of it, and so I turned my grass into wood chip play, see behind. But that's a great task to get done over the winter. So I would put down a lot of cardboard on the areas that I wanted to be wood chipped, and then put the wood chip on top of that, and you tend to find that then the cardboard will suppress any of the weeds from kind of coming through, and then the bark will just start to kind of break down into the soil. And now just every year I'll just give it a little bit of a top up, and it's really easy to maintain, but a great winter job. The other tip that I wish that I knew when I took on my allotment was to get to know the people around you. Now, Everything grows differently in different areas, so getting to know what your allotment site is like is really helpful. For example, this site is absolutely prone to tomato blight. So every single year our tomatoes will get blight if they are outside. So actually growing blight resistant varieties is really important. And I spent the first 2 years growing some beautiful heritage varieties, but they'd only last half the season because then they'd get blight. Whereas now, outside I grow all my blight resistant varieties, and in the polytunnel I grow the varieties that might be more like kind of heritage varieties, and that will get blight quite easily, but at least they're a little bit protected in there. The other really good things to know and to get to chat to your fellow allotment people is what grows really well here. So yes, we might get really bad blight, but we tend to do really well with fruits here. We've got a lot of birds, you might be able to hear them, but they don't tend to, touch wood, go for the raspberries and the currants and things on this allotment site. So actually this allotment site's great for growing loads of your soft fruits. You don't need to give them much protection from the birds at all. And when I was chatting to some of my fellow allotment neighbours, they were really kind enough to give me some cuttings and some small plants to get myself going. Things like black currants, gooseberries, raspberries, you can grow them from cuttings really easily. You don't need to go and buy some. So by chatting to your fellow allotment site people, you will be able to probably get yourself off to a really good start with some really amazing soft fruit kind of bushes and plants. And my last tip for getting yourself started at the allotment is to not take it too seriously. Mother Nature is ultimately in control down here, not us. As much as we like to think that we're in control of this, we're not. If we're going to have a blazing hot summer, guess what? Some of your crops aren't going to do so well. If we have a really soggy, slug infested summer like we did last year, some of your crops aren't going to do so well, and there's not a hell of a lot that you can do about it. So take this as a learning opportunity. You will win some, you will lose some. Some years things will grow absolutely beautifully, other years they just won't really grow at all, and you'll wonder why I even bothered sowing them in the first place. Sow what you like to eat. There's no point sowing and growing something that you don't like to eat, because the whole point of it is that you get to eat it. So only sow and grow what you enjoy. Take your time. Don't be heartbroken if something doesn't work out. That's part and parcel of having the allotment. Some things do well, some things don't. But give it a whirl, give it a go. Get excited by different varieties. This year I'm going to be growing asparagus peas. I didn't even know that existed before I got my allotment, but it'll be my first year giving them a go this year. I have no idea how they're going to turn out, but we give it a go, we enjoy the process, and we have a bit of a laugh along the way. So my other tip would be just give it a bit of a go. Don't take it too seriously. Get some of those seeds in the soil, and in your first year, just see how it goes and how it grows. You're learning this little bit of land, this little bit of soil, and you will soon find out what does do well or not so well in it, and the little quirks of the little plot of land that you have got. And I said last tip, but this really is my last tip, is engage with the allotment community. So I said a bit about having the people down your allotment site, but more so than that is that there is an incredible community that is available online, whether that's on things like this on YouTube, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's Facebook groups. There is so much out there for you to get engaged with and get involved in seed swaps and plant swaps and seeing what other people are doing as ideas. One of my little things this year is I found a old wooden ladder, and I'm going to be growing some beans and things up it, because why not? So look at what other people are doing on repurposing and reusing, and see how that you can incorporate that into your allotment as well. But it really is one of those that the more you give into this, the more you're going to get out of it. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, and you would like to see more hints and tips and real life experience of growing at my allotment, then please just click onto the subscribe button so that you'll see everything from a gardening midwife.